to share a story today, and it's a true story. It's the story of my club, actually. And for the club, if there's anyone in here who has a struggling club, hopefully it's a message of hope and some encouragement that you're not at the end of the line. And if you have a vibrant club, I hope it'll be a reminder that we were once very vibrant and ended up almost disbanding, and that was just 6 years ago. So I'm, at the end, before you leave, I'm giving you a copy of this story to take home. Share it with your membership, because if it happened to us, it can happen to you. Back in 1981, I was invited to a membership tea. And at that time, I did not know what Altrusa was. I'm ashamed to say that now, but I didn't. And when I received the invitation, it was for a Sunday afternoon tea at a local country club, and I went out of curiosity. And so when I got there, I was listening, and I heard, well, Altrusa of Lorraine, at that time it was Lorraine, not Lorraine County, had started in 1949. And I'm thinking, 1949, you know, how can I not be familiar? But in those days, Altrusans were told, you do something without needing glory. Well, found out what that got us, didn't we? We had started junior achievement in our community. We had trained all of the volunteers for the first hospice in Ohio, which was in our town, and nobody knew who we were. So then they started talking about, you know, district and international, and I was overwhelmed, and I thought, I'm not sure that I can be a part of this. You know, it just really seems so complicated. But then I was told who proposed me for membership, and I was too embarrassed not to join. So I joined. And there were 4 of us that day that became members a couple of weeks later, and out of the 4, I'm the only one remaining. For various reasons, they dropped out, but I'm the only one left. When I became a member, again, you had to keep track of your service hours, and it was very, very rigid. And so it took me a couple of years to figure out all of these rules and what I was supposed to do and what I shouldn't be doing. And after a number of years, in 1988, I became president of our club, and I held that position for 2 years. And after stepping down as immediate past president, I decided to go back to school. So I was working, going to school, still raising 3 children, and tried to keep my husband in line. So you know how that goes. So I would get to Altrusa, but not as faithfully as I had been. And that went on for a number of years where I would go, but not, you know, I was kind of out of the loop, actually. Well, after a number of years, when I really got back on a good grounding, I noticed there was a big difference in the attitude of my club. And I'm going to share what happened to our club because we didn't recognize it. And Natalie is a teacher, and her students were kind enough to make these, just so that we're going to do something with these tires. Our tires are just fine. We thought we were fine. Tires are going flat. Did we know it? Mm-mm. And did we need new tires? We still thought we were just fine. It was all of these things. Our members were no longer working just, you know, let's go in and let's do something and let's have fun. We were looking at what every other member wasn't doing. And maybe some of you have that in your club. You know, you get to a point where you stop focusing on yourself and you're looking, okay, I've been out there and I've been doing all of that, and she hasn't been doing a thing. And look at her service hours. Boy, look at hers next to mine. We became so petty. It was unbelievable, the pettiness that went on at that time. Then you get into this, you go to your meeting, and the president has no more control because everybody wants to argue. I am not paying dues. Dues are too much. And why do we have to share these dues with district and international when we don't have to pay to be volunteers? Boy, does that, you know, once that gets started, it takes on a life of its own because everybody joins in with, she's right. You know, you forget about everything except you get caught up in it. We all did. I'm not going to say, you know, well, I started thinking too, well, maybe this is true. So our tires are going flat. They're not just fine, they're going flat. But we think we're fine. So what happened as a result, when we're calling ourselves tires, the members are the tires of your group. When your tires start to go, you just look for reasons and reasons, but what ultimately happened is that we didn't recruit members anymore. We were too busy fighting with each other outside the club, into the meeting. Who's bringing a member? Nobody, and even if we brought a member, that member came to a few meetings and listened to this chaos, didn't come back and quit very quickly. So we not only were not bringing them in, but they were leaving pretty quick too, even if they did come in. So the only, you know, we're thumping along on this tire, it's getting flatter, you know, and we're just going, we think we are just fine, and the only answer to this is, by golly, if these people aren't going to straighten up, and if we're going to keep paying these dues, we're disbanding. Okay. Well, we had a president at that time who really focused on money, and really stoked the fire. The membership was already, you know, thumping along. She didn't need to pay dues and was making it real clear that when she was finished with her obligations, she would no longer pay dues and she was leaving Altrusa. What does that do for the morale of your group? You're already struggling and you have a president up there that is behaving like this. And so ultimately, there were a few people who tried to keep us from self-destructing, but all of a sudden it was just not going to happen. She stepped down as when she finished her immediate past presidency, and we were fortunate at that time, or we thought, our incoming president at that time had transferred in from another club, so she was a real Altrusan. But she got married and they moved to our town, and so she transferred in. And you know, we had reached a point where every time the nominating committee met, nobody would accept the presidency. So what happens? They would intimidate somebody into taking it. She was new. She didn't even know what we were about. She's standing up there trying to be president. So that was, okay, good. This time, boy, we're going to be all right because she's a real Altrusan. Well, she served a number of months, and lo and behold, she and her new husband were getting a divorce. And she told us that she needed to find a better job to support herself. And there was a possibility if she couldn't find one in our area, she would need to leave the area. So now we've got this black cloud hanging over us again. And at the next meeting, we tried meeting we used to meet, you know, a business meeting, and then the second meeting, we had 2 meetings a month, and the second was a service. By this time, we had moved ourselves down to just, I think it was okay to have 1 a month, and we then said, okay, it's not working in the evening, let's do afternoon. So this was in the afternoon, and she said, I need to leave early because I have a job interview. So she left for her job interview, and the next thing, I'm sitting there, and they're talking disbanding our club. It's not on the agenda. Nobody knows about it. The president just left for a job interview, and they're talking about disbanding our club. And I thought, well, I can't believe this, you know. I mean, it's totally out of control. So the next thing, they're talking, well, we don't have to be we don't have to be Altrusans to be together and do service together. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to disband, and we are going to remain together as just citizens, and we're going to save all that money. Okay? So a member made the motion to disband. I was sitting there stunned. I thought, this is a joke, right? It wasn't a joke. The members passed it. We're disbanded. Well, I was the only dissenting vote that day because something just struck me. You know, this is, even if you disband, this isn't the way you do it. Nobody knows about it. Later that day, I got a call from Linda Davis. Many of you probably remember District Governor Linda Davis, God bless her. She called me, and I don't know who called her. It might have been the president that came back to find out she was no longer the president of the club. And so Linda called me later that day, and she's because we got to know each other over the years coming to district conference. And she said, you know, those of you who know Linda, she said, what the hell is going on? Yeah? And I said, I haven't got a clue, Linda. It just happened. She left for a job interview, and the next thing I knew, we were disbanding. So she asked me if I could possibly get some of, or all of the members if possible, to get together the following Saturday. She was going to be passing through our area that Saturday morning, and she said if we could meet somewhere for breakfast. So I called everybody, and I said, you know, and they said, well, we've disbanded. And I said, she would like to at least talk. We told her we would give her the courtesy. I think we should. So we all met at this downtown Lorraine restaurant, and Linda gave us, first of all the reasons why we should stay together. And then she said, think outside the box. Get rid of everything and start over. You don't need to be doing all of these things that your club thinks you need to be doing. She said, well, we need to have dues. Okay. All right. Everybody there, you know, at first, you know, and then she said, would one of you consider getting everybody together just so that you can have a personal, you know, private talk about this? So I said, okay, called everybody. We got together at my house the following week before they came. But you know what? We're starting out with something that gives us a little bit of settling down. So I mixed our famous rum punch. Remember the Lorraine County Revitalization Punch? Okay, so that was the start of it. You put out that punch bowl, and after a few sniffs, a few sips, we were laughing. Some of us were crying. And one of the members said, you know, if we disband, we know we are not going to stay together. And we are friends because of Altrusa. And so everybody, you know, we're sniffling and drinking and needed designated drivers, but it worked. For us it worked because we decided to go ahead with the May meeting. And of course the May meeting is where you should already have a slate. Well, we didn't have a slate. So we went to the May meeting, and first of all, we decided we need to see, do we really want to get rid of that motion to disband that was passed? It probably wasn't even legal because nobody had prior knowledge. But anyway, we did that very quickly, and everybody said, let's stay together. But right now, we're starting over. Everything, we're starting over. And so now we needed officers. Well, after all of that, I had this sense of obligation, you know. I opened my big mouth, so I better step up to the plate. So I said, okay, I'll be president. Well, another gal said, well, if Rita will be president, I'll be vice president. And the next person, and that's how we had officers for the following year. And we weren't prepared with corsages or any of that. There were fresh flowers on the table, so we each went up and plucked a flower out of the centerpieces, and we stood there with these half-dead mums, and we became the officers. But, you know something? We are so much healthier now because now we follow Linda's orders. Start over. We are not doing fundraising anymore. We do a rummage sale. You know, brings in about $1,000. We've done it the past couple of years, but it's enough for us to do some projects that we feel are worthwhile. We don't keep track of service hours. Whatever you can do, whenever you can do it. No more of this bickering and fighting over looking over who has this amount of service hours. We only meet 4 times a year now with a business meeting. And the rest of the time, we are out in the community doing things together. But we do things where we work as a group and we laugh a lot. You know, if things get a little heavy, you know, I've been known to do a handstand, whatever, you know, to distract them and let's get back to having some laugh. And I think that's really what is important. It's the members. You know, if you don't have District 5, and I know that all clubs are having trouble, not just Altrusa, because we forget about, it's not about the fundraising, it's not about your service project, because if you don't have any members, you can't do them anyway. So, you know, what we have decided, and I really wanted to share this with you, in December, District Governor Kathleen Kane, we inducted 2 more new members that brought us back up to our charter strength. So we are now at charter strength plus 1 emeritus. For us, it was such a big celebration. It might have been no big deal to anybody else, but to us, it was a big deal because we had been to the bottom, and now we had realized that we needed new tires. The tires were flat. We were not going anywhere except talking, disbanding. We now had our new tires, and it's been a long, I'm not telling you it's easy to get members, but we don't do big events to get members. We have been just choosing for now to do it individually, to propose a member. And I ran a copy in case anyone is interested for a fresh look about what you might send to a prospective member. I ran some copies of what we send because along with you have been proposed for membership, you know, that sort of letter, we include a short history of Altrusa, which just gives you the highlights of international and, you know, down. And so I ran those off in addition to our story, which is such an important story because it shows you that without members, forget it. And bringing in new members, you get new ideas. You become vibrant. You're revitalized because they come in.